welcome back to Simply Mums. As always, we're here to empower women, empower mothers, empower families. My name is Leah. I'm the host of Simply Mums, and it's a space to talk about motherhood, relationships, growth, business, and anything in that line. And today we have a guest, and her name is Kandy. Welcome, Kandy.
Thank you. Hello, Leah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. So Kandy is going to introduce herself. She's going to tell you everything that she does.
So, hi everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Kandy Holgate. I am a specialist in boundaries. I'm a life coach and I work with women, helping them to discover their purpose and achieving that through setting healthy boundaries and living the most fulfilling life that they can.
Brilliant. All right. So today we're going to talk about a topic that I'm sure very many people are interested in. It's about, conflict and resolving conflict. So what is conflict, and what do you think that is?
So I think conflict in broadest terms is the way that we describe disagreements between individuals, and often that is as a result of some area in the communication where there perhaps needs to be some adjustments and where we could do some work. I think, conflict is inevitable in any relationship. We're not made as carbon copies of each other. We're not robots, we're all individuals.
Yeah.
So, conflict is going to be inevitable, but it's how we deal with it. That can sometimes be where the issue lies.
Through your coaching and life and everything, how do you think that comes about, especially from the way we are brought up? Well,
something that I have seen and has been described to me a number of times is how the way we are brought up affects how we therefore show up in the world. And that's inevitable, isn't it? We are a product of the way that we've been nurtured.
Yeah.
So if we have seen, experienced conflict as children within our homes from our parents, then it's something that we will either go towards or move away from. And sometimes something that I've heard quite regularly is that some children, or who are now adults, didn't actually see conflict between their parents when they were at home. Their parents hid that from them. And that can result in a number of challenges, because if you don't see conflict being played out, then when it happens, which is inevitable, as we've said, when you're an adult yourself, how do you deal with it? You don't have the tools to deal with it.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Whereby someone grew up seeing their parents fight, and then they're always either they want to fight or they don't want to fight.
Yeah.
And then some of the people who've not seen their parents argue, they're like, how did they manage to live without, arguing? How did they resolve their conflicts? Because they never showed us that. I believe that parents should not fight in front of us, but they should actually empower the children to be able to deal with the conflict. Like for me, I'll be honest. When I was growing up, my parents, I did not see them argue once.
Okay, so where you say that you didn't see your parents, getting into conflict or disagreeing, how would you say that's impacted you, Leah?
I'd say that it did not give me the tools to handle conflict. I just thought that people live, harmoniously without having conflict.
Yeah.
So you just avoid it. If you see someone trying to have conflict, you just either stay away or keep quiet or not answer to that, or try and act like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Which is not really healthy.
No, exactly. And I think it's really important that you identified that you tried to avoid it, because that avoidance is acknowledging that there's an issue, but then making a choice to not address it. And, when things are not addressed, they don't go away. They have the ability to then just sit, fester, unfortunately, and grow and grow and grow. And unresolved issues don't actually go away. They just have the ability and the space to become even more serious. So I think it's really important what you've said when you use that word avoid it, and that I think is a very common thing, that we think that conflict is negative rather than seeing it as an inevitable part of relationships, and then we will do our very best to avoid a situation rather than try to address it and resolve it. So that I think can be a real issue for many relationships. And you mentioned that you didn't see your parents disagreeing, and that means therefore that you perhaps won't know how to deal with and identify disagreements, you know, as an adult. And again, with children, then that situation perpetuates. We're not you're not teaching children, you know, that conflict is inevitable, and being able to have conflict resolution and learn how to resolve conflicts effectively is a tool that they are going to need all through life, not just with, you know, their personal relationships with their siblings, with their friends, when they then are adults, and also with their professional relationships as well. Being able to, you know how to resolve conflict is a really important skill and tool. And the most important thing with that is to be able to have empathy for the other person and know that you actually want to resolve the conflict rather than win an argument. Because I think that's sometimes a real problem, where people sometimes want to be right. They want to be right rather than actually thinking, what do we both need in order for this conflict to be resolved and this issue not to continue in this relationship that we value?
Yeah. So at that point, then, do you put you said about putting boundaries or agreeing on what to do in case?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing, so when you're thinking about, okay, certainly for, like, say, for example, newly married couples or people who are getting ready to be married and want to be together, it's going to be really important for them to think, right, okay, what do we want family life to look like? Because if, you know, God blesses them and they have children, the start that they have together is going to determine what their family life looks like. I think that's a really important conversation to have, where you do explore, okay, so what did conflict look like when you were growing up? I never saw my parents arguing or disagreeing. Okay, what was it like for you? Well, actually, they were always arguing and it was really a scary environment. You know, that also is possible. So I think it's really important for that couple to decide, okay, what do we want our family life to look like? What world do we want to bring our children in when we're in the safety of our home? And that's something that needs to be discussed and agreed on. And also with the understanding that we all come from different backgrounds, and there needs to be a tolerance and understanding. And, you know, there's no crystal ball, there's no magic wand that you can wave and say, okay, I want it to be like this, so let's just make that happen. Like anything, it needs to be agreed and it needs to be worked at, and it needs to be a work in progress, because we're not robots. You know, we're humans and we have off days as well. You know, it might be, okay, I know we agreed we're going to do this, but actually today I just don't want to talk about anything. I just need to be left alone for a bit. That also needs to be understood. So I think, you know, agreement between two people is what is going to enable the resolution of conflict to happen.
So what needs to be done then to change that dynamic is the communication.
Absolutely, and it's knowing what you're working with. You know, so when you're coming into a relationship, you want to know, like I was saying, you want to know, okay, what is your experience, and how, you know, how are your experiences making you show up now? And then, you know, it's about understanding that for both of you, how your past experiences are affecting how you show up now. And also the parts of that you want to keep, the parts you want to actually tweak, and the parts of your past or upbringing that perhaps aren't serving you anymore, and you want to perhaps start to think about changing, if that's what's right for you. So I think the communication is the most important thing, and also remembering that there is no quick answer. It just needs to be a constant work in progress, understanding each other's values and agreeing on what the values that you're going to bring into your relationship are going to be.
That's a married situation. What about if it's a parent and child?
So we're talking about an adult parent and an adult child, or a minor and a parent?
I think it will start from not a minor, but maybe teenagers, because minors, they won't answer back. They just do what you want as a child. And at some point, as we grow up, well, I would give my example. I think I never argued back or any of that until I grew up and I was like an adult. To actually notice things that are like, oh no, I won't do this. So, and even when I decided I'm not gonna do it, I will not tell my mom that I won't do it, or I'll not tell my dad that I won't do it. I just don't do it, or I do it a different way. But not like confrontation or any of that. But this generation of ours, the children that we have, they'll answer you back. So how do we address disagreements us and the between us and the children.
Okay. So I think, so we talked about like the parents, you know, and their dynamic and their relationship. And I think the first thing to be aware of is that the children, from when they're very little, they're sponges and they continue to be sponges. So what behaviour they see, they will either go towards that behaviour or away from it. So let's say, for example, they're seeing negative communication at home from their parents. It may be that they think, actually, I don't want my adult life to be like that. Or it could be, well, that's what my parents do, so that's obviously how you communicate. You shout, you do whatever, and it could be followed. So I think appreciating that what they see as young children is going to be really, really important. The difficulty with children is that when they're little at home, there are no other influences. There aren't any other children to influence them and tell them, don't do that, do it this way instead. But it's once they start school, then things do change, don't they? And it's like, where did this come from? What's happened to my baby? You know, it's completely different. And I think that's inevitable. That's inevitable. That's going to happen. It's going to come down to, I believe, in my experience, it comes down to the foundations that have already been laid. And then just the repetition of, you know, if you start to see changes, then addressing them straight away. Because a child is not going to be, you know, what you deem as well behaved one day, then the next day they suddenly are not. It's going to be a gradual thing. And it's going to be pushing a little boundary. I'm going to do this. I'll just see if I get away with that and see what happens. Now, depending on where, you know, the position that the parent's in, if the parent's busy, distracted, it might not be that they have the time or the inclination to actually address that then. And they might get away with it. But I think the important thing is to be really consistent in the expectations that you have of the children. Because like I said, they're not going to suddenly change overnight. It's going to be a gradual thing. And even if they see behaviours outside of the home that their friends are doing, the point just needs to be relayed all the time that, you know, your friends are brought up by their parents and you're brought up by me, and therefore, you know, and I want the best for you. One of the things that I always said to my daughters, who are adults now, I always repeatedly said to them a couple of things. One was, you might not understand why I'm doing this now, but I love you, and it will become clear as you get older. I repeated that so many times because, you know, you have to make decisions as parents, don't you? And the children may not like it or understand it, but I just reassured them all the time. It will become clear and you'll understand when you're older. You just need to know that I love you. So that's one thing I always said. And the other thing that I always said to them, and in fact, one of my adult children repeated it back to me the other day, I always said, everybody gets what they need. So if you've got more than one child, and I don't want any of this, oh, you did that for them, you don't need to look at what's happening there, because everyone gets what they need. So, you know, when I'm saying something or asking you to do something, it's because as your parent, I'm trying my best to make sure that you get what you need. Everybody gets what they need.
That's a good one. Because the comparisons are always there. You did this for this one. Why does this one do this?
Everyone gets what they need. And in fact, I said that. Please do. Please take it. It works. And I said that to one of my friends. So she had a toddler, and then when she was getting ready to have her second baby, when she was pregnant, I said, right, you're going to need this for when you have the second one.
So how do we improve communication and model it in a way that our children will take it positively?
Yeah, okay. So like we were saying, it's inevitable that we're going to disagree, and we're not always going to be able to be like model parents where we're not angry, we're not hungry, we're not tired. You know, these things are going to happen. But I think as long as we're making the effort to do it as much as we possibly can, that's all that we can ask for. So it's about making a continuous concerted effort to show up in the best way that you can. That's positive. And there may be some times where, you know, if you're in a disagreement with your partner that you think, okay, you know, we need to take this offline and we need to go and sort this out because this is actually quite serious. Of course, that needs to happen. It's not going to be that every time you have a disagreement, you're like, right, okay, kids, sit down. We're going to have a disagreement. We want you to see what we're doing. It's not going to be that, you know, but it's just going to be the things that they are not going to see. They're not going to see you shouting at each other. They're not going to see people storming off. They're not going to see the silent treatment, which I think is so damaging. You know, they're not going to see people name calling each other or, you know, being disrespectful. They're going to see things as positively as you can make them as much of the time as you can.
So how does that happen? Because you mentioned that it has to be a concerted effort.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Do you sit down and set the boundaries at the beginning? When does this
I think it
happen?
has to be decided at the beginning. So, no, earlier we were talking about, you know, couples when they're considering getting together and they're working out, okay, so when you're choosing your partner, you're going to be thinking, okay, as far as I possibly can, I want to choose somebody who's compatible with me. And having that self-awareness within yourself about, well, who am I compatible with? You know, there needs to be a lot of self-awareness, a lot of emotional intelligence as well to be able to choose somebody who you believe you'll be compatible with. And again, it's just a belief because we don't know the plans that are there for us. All we can do is go with it. But I think it's ensuring that the foundations are in place. So, and that is going to be about the values. So you've got shared values. When those foundations are in place, then it's very possible to work with anything. Say, for example, you have the value of respect. Then that's an amazing foundation because the chances are if the value of respect is there, they're not going to shout at you. They're not going to disrespect you, you know, in public or in front of the children. There are going to be things that they won't do if respect is a value. So I think that, you know, in an ideal world, yes, we will start with the foundations and keep building and building and building. But it's also important to remember that, let's say, for example, we're in a position where you think, actually, this isn't working, what do we do? Then we just really need to strip it right back. Strip it right back and ask ourselves, right, okay, we need to be able to identify what the issues are. And I work with women all the time who come to me who know something's wrong, but they're not able to identify what the issue is or where it started or how they got to that point. So that's a lot of the work that I do, is just helping women to break it down and work out, okay, where did this thing come from? Because you need to be able to identify the issue before you can know what to do about it. Yeah.
Very interesting. So we've stripped it back.
Yeah.
And we've, you know, trying to say that, you know, conflict is normal. It doesn't mean something is wrong with you.
Yeah.
It just means we need to address it.
Absolutely.
In a certain...
In a positive, effective way.
Yeah. So what tools can you give people
for resolving conflict?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing I'd say is agree that you both want to change. Agree that you want to change. Agree that, okay, this isn't a competition. Nobody, you know, we're not looking, you don't want to prove yourself right. What you want is to work for the relationship and you want to develop an effective way to move forward together. So once you've got that agreement that you want to move forward, that opens up the ground for what people are prepared to do in order to get the results that you want. And like I said, it you know, things need to be stripped back, Leah. We need to strip it all back and then look at what needs to change and where do the compromises need to be made. We have to make compromises for effective relationships. And, you know, I can't say definitively with this tick box, if you do this, that will happen. But the starting point is really wholeheartedly wanting to change. Because if both people wholeheartedly want to change, then they're prepared to have those negotiations to see where you need to go. And I think definitely, you know, because sometimes I think, you know, for some people that I've worked with, when there are issues, everything's wrapped up in the home, you know, things are happening in the home. Often taking things away from the home into a neutral space, a new environment, is a really good starting point to sort of say, look, what's actually happening? I know when I needed to speak to my children when they became a bit older. Well, actually, no, I'd say probably once they properly understood, say 10 upwards. If there was something that I thought, actually, I really want to have this conversation with you, and if, because there were other, they had their sibling around, I would say, come on, let's just go for a walk. Let's just go and have a milkshake. Let's just go and do something, so that they know I want the best for them. So I'm not speaking to them to just reprimand them and not make them feel good about themselves. I'm wanting to create and nurture the best young person that I can. And by speaking to them, giving them respect and not speaking down to them and saying, look, we're having a really grown-up conversation where I need you to take responsibility as well for your actions. It's not just going to be me saying, do this, do that. I need to create space where you're able to take responsibility for your actions.
Wow, that's a good one. So identify the issue, take it away from the home.
If you need to, just find a space, or just work out how do I create the optimum environment for the outcome that I want? How do I create that optimum environment for the outcome that I want?
And then deliver the message in a nice way.
In a calm way, because you're in a nice environment, Nobody's stressed, nobody's hungry, nobody's... it's the same with couples. Let's say, for example, you want to speak to your partner about something. You're not going to, the minute they get through the front door, be like, right, sit down, I need to speak to you. You let them come in, have a drink, maybe have dinner, just be relaxed, so that they can receive what you want to say. And that is a really important part of communication. It is two ways. So when you're listening to someone, the listening needs to be active. So active listening, and that is not just hearing the words passively and then waiting for them to stop talking. Active listening is listening and really trying your best to understand what they're saying with empathy, how they're feeling, and then taking some time to respond to what they've said, and not simply nodding and saying nothing, but waiting for them to finish talking so that you can make your next point. True communication where the listening is active and effective is where you try as much as possible to sort of focus totally on what they're saying, so that your response reflects what they have said, and you're able to show that empathy.
That's interesting. How do you help children, or how do you impart that skill of active listening to your children?
Yeah. So if you demonstrate active listening when you're speaking to your children, then you are teaching them how to do it. And then you are already setting up an expectation for that. And once they are developing that skill, then they can then use it themselves. So say, for example, with siblings. So I've got 2 girls. So when my daughters were little, particularly in the summer holidays when they had a lot of time together, they inevitably would find that there were things that, they would disagree on. I want to play with that toy, or you did this, or whatever it was. And when they were very young, they would constantly come and say, Mummy, so-and-so did this, she did that, she did this. And then I would encourage them to resolve that conflict effectively themselves. I taught them conflict resolution. So I would say, okay, so you go to your playroom, and you sit and you talk to each other, and you really listen what the other person is saying, and you resolve it. So I'm teaching them active listening because that's what I did with them, and also from modelling it and then encouraging them to use it themselves. And I'd say just go and speak to each other, talk to each other, let each other know how you feel, and then come and tell me when you resolved it. Then they would go into their playroom, and I would go often and just put my ear just to listen to see what was going on. And you would hear them saying, when you did this, it made me feel like that. Oh, really? I'm sorry. I didn't realise that that's how it made you feel. I didn't mean that. What I meant to do was this. Oh, I see. And then you can therefore understand where misunderstandings happened, and in a really nice, calm, effective way. And then inevitably it would end with them saying, oh, I'm sorry about that, I didn't mean to do that. And then they sort it out. And then they would come really proud and say, Mummy, we sorted it out.
All right.
And I'm like, great, who wants a drink or an ice cream or something?
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, it's a really nice, gentle way. And because, the children are encouraged to break it down, which is, I mean, children, adults, we all need to do this because it's breaking it down and breaking down any misunderstandings. Then you're removing so many things. You're removing assumptions. You're removing any judgments that you thought were made about you. We're just getting down to the reality of the fact that you're just two individuals with different opinions trying to get along and trying to sort out, you know, something that wasn't clear and that made either of you or both of you upset.
And then that leads me to the point of repairing. So how do you repair now from that? So you've resolved the conflict by talking about it and acknowledging or validating what the other person was feeling. So how do you repair then from there?
So I think the repair begins once the understanding and apology has happened. You know, I know certainly some people find it really difficult to say sorry, and that could be for a number of reasons. It could be because they don't think they're wrong, or it could be because it just does not feel natural to them to say sorry. And I think it's something we should all practice. You know, saying sorry, and not just, you know, uttering the words, but just thinking, okay, how could I behave differently in that situation? And if you can come up with an idea of what you think you could have done differently, then you can think, actually, I could have done that differently, and I'm going to apologise for the way I behaved. So I think that, you know, the way forward is reflection. Reflection is always going to be the way, because once you feel you could have done something differently and you're allowing that time for reflection, then I think that the repair is naturally going to happen, because the other person is aware, actually they're reflecting, they are thinking about me. They've taken the time to think about how I felt and my feelings there, and I'm happy with that. And there's not much more really that you can do other than, you know, break it down and apologise, reflect, and then, as I said before, try going forward to keep that thing in mind that person has asked you not to do.
So I've had people say, oh, he always says I'm sorry, and then the behavior doesn't change. What would you say to that?
So I would say try to avoid using the word always. Try to avoid using the word always. Because, you know, in a disagreement, that's such a common thing that someone will say, you always do this or you always do that. And that's antagonistic, you know, and that is going to perhaps put someone on edge and put them sort of like in a defensive position. If you're saying, you always do this, what every single day I do this thing, that's difficult. There's not much, there's difficult, because if you're saying that somebody always does something, then you're saying that that's part of their character, that's part of them. And if it's their character, there's not much you can do about your character. That's who you are. So I think I'd probably avoid using the word always. Try to avoid always. And replace it with something like, you know, this isn't the first time you've done this, I've noticed, if that's okay. You know, I really would appreciate it if you could try to do X, Y, or Z and explain why. I've worked with a number of women who have not felt that they can tell their partner what it is, that is why something's upsetting them. Or, you know, I've asked you to do that. Can you make sure that you leave that over there, please, and don't put it there? But why? Because when you leave it there by the door, and I could trip over it. So, you know, it's quite dangerous. So give the request context so that they know why that thing is being asked, rather than it just being an instruction.
So these are some of the things you do in your coaching.
Yes, absolutely. It's just, you know, helping women. I help people to raise their awareness of their situation. You know, with coaching, the answers are all within the person, but it's just often muffled by all the other things that are happening. So I just help people to navigate their situations and get to the reality of what's actually happening, rather than the stories that they've told themselves, the things that they've accepted, where they just think, well, this is just the way it is, so I'm just going to have to get on with it. Not necessarily, you know. And if your situation is preventing you from following the purpose that you want for yourself because there's just no space, then I think that that's really, a challenging thing to accept, that, because you're unable to find a route, then your purpose is not going to happen for you. So that's a lot of the work that I do, helping women to discover their purpose if they don't know what it is, and then also make time, because there's only 24 hours in a day. We can't make any more. It's how we use them.
Yeah. Interesting. So what's the difference between coaching and counselling?
So counselling is where the counsellor will look at things that have happened in the past, and they will then help you to understand where you are today based on the things that have happened to you in the past, and then they will help you work through that. Coaching accepts that the coachee knows what they want, but they just don't know how to get it, or how to start navigating how to get that thing. It could also be that they're not sure what they want, but they just know they want it to be different. So then, I will help somebody to navigate, okay, well, let's look at everything and let's work out from those things that you've said, let's guide you to, where it is that you want to be. So it is more appreciating that you have it within you, but you're going to get there much more quickly if I support you in that. Yeah.
Wow. So do you have like a website for your...
I do, yes. So my website is The Fulfillment Focus, or Instagram @The Fulfillment Focus. You can DM me, get in touch with me, send me an email. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was like the last word as we wrap up. What's the last word you would, if they didn't listen to anything, what's the last word anyone should take from this?
I think they should take that communication is the most important thing in any relationship. So working out how you communicate well between yourselves is going to be the most powerful thing that you can do for your relationship.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks, Kandy, for
my pleasure
coming to SimplyMums. And just guys, make sure you subscribe so you encourage us, give us more motivation to keep doing what we're doing. Until next time, bye.
Bye. Hi, my name is Kandy. I am a coach. I specialise in boundaries. I help women to set healthy boundaries, effective boundaries. My business is The Fulfillment Focus. Please subscribe to SimplyMums to hear more conversations like this. Like and share your comments.